Hey guys, welcome back. Really excited about this. We're diving into loneliness again. All right, we already did a podcast, episode 259, that was on loneliness. We're approaching it from a different angle in terms of the skill of active listening and how it combats loneliness, how you can be on the front lines in the assault on this against this loneliness epidemic that we're experiencing.
Yeah, and we will give you a little bit of a technique that you can go and practice right away. So stick around.
Cool. See you in there. Hey folks, welcome back to the Catholic Coaching Podcast. My name is Matt.
And I'm Erin.
And we're going to be your Catholic coaches for the next 45 minutes here. So we're actually, like that sound, we're going to be returning back to this topic of loneliness, but we're going to be approaching it from a different angle. In episode 259, we talked about loneliness and specifically ways to counter loneliness using more of a cognitive behavioral approach.
Yeah.
We were kind of drawing from our experience having Dr. Kevin Vost on the podcast a couple of years ago. He said that is the most effective way of actually combating loneliness, and he authored the book, The Catholic Guide to Loneliness. But we want to approach loneliness from a different angle and a different skill set that can combat it because, goodness, there's a lot of lonely people out there.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's an epidemic and it's on the rise. And what's fascinating about it is, partially, we are doing something at AMU, Ave Maria University tonight, and we're talking about loneliness a little bit because there's such a rise, especially in Gen Z, of Generation Z, of loneliness. And that's that age group of like 16 to 25, I think.
Yeah. 60% of college students report feeling lonely in the past year. And I remember the loneliness factor being the number one reasons why people actually don't come back after their freshman year. So that's very interesting. From a monetary standpoint, you would college administrators pay attention to this if you care about retention and retaining your students. But also in that Gen Z generation, considered one of the loneliest age groups.
Yeah.
Okay.
From 40 to 61% have reported to feel lonely on a daily basis.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of reasons for this. Part of it being just the screen culture that we've grown up with. And some of the studies showing how this is decreasing the ability to really just cultivate some of those social skills, those basic interaction skills. We're going to be talking about that with the active listening skills and how they counter loneliness. So we're going to be sharing that with the AMU group here tonight. But this is something that I think across the board, if we all are going to do our part and we all are called to be leaders in the charge against this loneliness epidemic, that means you listening to this, we want to build a case for the importance of learning these active listening skills, because they're not only great for people in your life who are experiencing loneliness, but if you are also experiencing loneliness, this is going to be a great skill for you to grow in as well, because it helps people on both sides of the conversation.
Yeah. Whether you're a boomer, Gen Z, a coach, a mentor, a parent of somebody who's Gen Z or somebody, like, it doesn't matter. You can apply these skills today. Actually, I'm very excited. We're also going to share with you a really brief little skill that you can apply today.
Yeah. So we're going to talk through just the magic that's behind active listening and really how it is so effective in combating loneliness. So that's going to be the first thing we do. Then we're going to talk about just how, again, you can be that leader in the assault against loneliness and why we want to build a case for you stepping into the fight here. And finally here, if you struggle with loneliness yourself, some ways that you can actually apply these skills to your life and how they're going to help you overcome loneliness and get the connection that you are longing for. Yeah. Cool.
Let's go.
Okay, so we don't want to dive too far back into loneliness. I think it's important to just revisit for first-time listeners here, just a quick definition of loneliness. Again, in episode 259 of the Catholic Coaching Podcast,
we go much deeper.
Go deeper. We give kind of what the Catholic Church has to say on loneliness, what psychology has to say on loneliness here. So, Erin, why don't we start here on just a little bit of a definition?
Yeah, I actually really like this definition. Psychologists define loneliness as the gap, so like a void, a gap between the relationships we desire and the ones we actually experience. So it's like loneliness. The actual definition of loneliness is sadness from being alone, but also it could be sadness from not from not having relationships that meet your expectations, the things that you really want and need.
Sounds a little like disappointment.
Yes, totally sounds like disappointment. I was actually thinking that when I read that. So loneliness is not about being alone necessarily. Okay. That could play a part in it, but I do want to separate that out because that's a big piece of the puzzle here.
Yeah.
Your circumstances, because it is an internal thing, your circumstances may have an effect, but do not have the primary effect on whether or not you feel lonely. And we know this because arguably we are the most connected culture that has ever existed on the face of the earth.
Yeah.
You know, we have Facebook, we have Instagram. You can connect with somebody in China who you've never met before. Like we can connect with people, yet there's this increase of loneliness, just growing. Okay. So obviously it's not changing our circumstances. It's not connecting with more people technically, but there's probably something deeper going on here.
Yeah, very much how we perceive the solitude, the state of the solitude. But again, sometimes we're not necessarily even in solitude. We can feel that loneliness. There's that sense that nobody understands me,
right?
Or you know, I'm afraid to open up because if I do, then I'm going to be rejected, right? Or even the sense that other people, you look around, it seems like everybody else has close friendships, but not me, and so we fall into that comparison game here. So
wait, I want to pause here because. You were saying a sense of this, but it's actually a thought. It's a sentence in your mind. Okay. And we're not going to go deeper on this. Like we said, that's in episode 259, but that's a big piece of the puzzle. The story that you're telling yourself is really big. Okay.
Yeah. I think it's really important here before we move on to just highlight, okay, so that might be, we gave a little bit of a high level of what loneliness is. Let's lift up the rug and see underneath. What are some of the things that are going on underneath the surface for somebody that's experiencing loneliness?
Yeah. These are more so like, cognitive actions or maybe lacks, a lacking in the person's life. So, okay. Number one, over focus on oneself, right? If you look back at a lot of those automatic thoughts that lead to loneliness, they're all I. There is an over focus on self. And we'll come back to this later. Number two, loneliness comes from a lack of meaningful relationships. So this goes back to that definition that we were just talking about. You know, it's like, I have this idea of what this meaningful relationship should look like in my life. And I don't have these.
I have a perception that I'm not there. Okay. So like that perceived lack in relationships. And even here, I think just a theological tie-in, knowing that I think back to St. Augustine, you have created me for yourself, O God, and my heart is restless until it rests in thee. We know that on this side of heaven, there's always going to be that longing that's there for a deeper relationship with the Lord that we won't experience until there's the full redemption of our bodies, right? We won't experience until the other side and we meet him face to face in heaven. And so there's sometimes the interpretation of that longing, right? Can trigger some of these cognitive distortions or actions that Erin's talking about, where suddenly we start to perceive that experience, that phenomenon of longing for God, right?
Yeah.
It's always going to be with us. And we start to perceive it as loneliness. And the thing here with loneliness too is drawing again from episode 259, I think an important caveat with feeling lonely versus feeling in solitude is there's a despair that's associated with the sorrow of being alone.
Yeah, like it's permanent.
It's permanent. It's a lack of hope, right?
Yeah, or a lack of like, will I ever be able to meet this? I just wanted to pause right there where you were saying, like we have this longing for the Lord. And whether it's loneliness, whether it's other people's company that you're addicted to or something else that you're addicted to, that really realizing that I have an infinite ache for infinity, for God, right? Who is infinity. No finite thing, including other people, will ever be able to fill it besides him. When I realized that actually really helped me quit smoking. Right. And so, even just thinking, people are going to fix this loneliness, or other people, being around other people or being connected to more people on Facebook or I don't know, whatever it is. We can be addicted to people. So I paused right there just to kind of dive a little bit deeper into that, and that realization that we do have an infinite ache and it is ordered that we have that infinite ache.
Yeah.
It is not something that you need to fix it, but you can turn it towards the only one who can fill it.
Yes.
The Lord.
And we can approach that with the theological gift of hope.
Yeah.
Right. So hope is, where we're that which we are longing for will actually be attained and fulfilled in God.
That's right. That's right.
And that we're longing for is God. So approaching with hope, that theological virtue, we can't generate it for ourselves. God has to gift it to us. Right. And that's where the sacraments really come in here too. But underneath the surface here, okay, if we look at the longings for entering those deep relationships, even the focus on self, like what are people really seeking here?
Yeah.
I think there's a desire to be seen and known. Right?
I think it's like what all of us are seeking. Like it's not even just other people. It's like to be seen, known, and heard, you know, like kind of depends on where you feel there may have been a wound in that area of your life.
I think there's even a desire to be rescued from like the navel gazing that's there. You talked about there being an excessive focus on self.
Yeah.
And just having somebody that can draw you out of yourself. And again, the active listening skills we're going to talk about here, folks, are going to be skills that help you to do exactly that, right? Even if you're the listener on the actual, asking those deep questions and creating the space for somebody else to be seen and known, there has a reciprocating effect on you that's really great. And then finally here for there's a longing for that deeper communion with God, but not just God, but like with his body as well. Also very ordered, active listening skills that we're going to be talking about here. They just get right to the heart of those longings.
I also think that last one, it like encapsulates all of them. Like, okay, so let me explain. The communion with Christ, we all want to be seen and known by somebody. I promise you, when you know that God sees you and knows you and you hear his voice and you receive that identity from him, you will not go looking elsewhere. You won't need to.
Yeah.
There's such a contentment in it. So that desire to be seen and known, yes. And the Lord speaks to us through other people for sure. And we need to run to him first. Yeah. Like 100% of the time.
I'm gonna go ahead and insert a plug for Become. All right. So Become, folks, is our new group study that we've launched. It's in the Academy. It's actually going on right now as we're recording this, but we're going to be running it twice a year in the Academy. We have our coaches that actually have this group study that's all about naming and claiming your unique identity in Christ and doing it in a prayerful way where you're creating space for the Lord to speak identity over you, and the transformations that have already been coming through and the breakthroughs and just people feel the intimacy that they're experiencing being seen by God, but also allowing themselves to see themselves, right? That's a big part of it here as well. And it's a really beautiful thing that gets right to the knowing your identity in Christ that you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you do join the Academy too, like we walk through this in our mission activation calls too, as well. So really understanding your identity, the vehicle there is through the means of the temperaments.
Yeah.
But it's not the end point. It's bringing those words and those phrases and that language to the Lord and allowing him to speak life and truth over you, which is exactly what we're telling you to do here.
Yeah,
okay.
Powerful stuff. Okay. So now we want to get ready to commission you guys to go out and be on mission and combating this loneliness here, because the skills that we're going to be teaching you here, really, they're very useful, not only in combating your own loneliness, but creating a space for other people to really have that connection that they're longing for. Okay, so this is a call to arms.
Yeah, and you can learn to do this today, like so easy. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So what's the way forward, Matt?
I love the discussion here that we've got, and just reflecting on how God has designed us and how active listening, the experience somebody has with active listening on a neurological level, on a spiritual level, on a relational level.
Can you explain to me what active listening is?
Yeah. So active listening is when you are listening in, you're giving your full attention to the person, and you are showing up with this disposition of compassionate curiosity. When you're actively, when you're actively listening to somebody, you're really seeking to see and know that person. And it shows up in the way that your body language with the person, the way that you ask questions. And it's a skill really that we have to learn, right? Because I think what happens is we often approach a person, especially if they're sharing their hearts with us, they're sharing a problem that they're dealing with, and we approach the person as they're a problem that needs to be solved.
Yeah.
Or there's a lack of information and they just need some advice. And so rather than really listening and hearing the heart of the person, we're kind of we're looking at them, but our brain is somewhere else. It's trying to be the person that we think we need to be the person, which is the one that has all the answers or the one that has all the solutions to this person and has that sage advice to give the person. That can be helpful, but I promise you, sometimes that advice works and sometimes it doesn't. But when you see the person and when you listen to the person, you receive the person, you win every single time.
And I will say too, if you are approaching that person as a problem to be fixed, they are not being seen or heard or known. They're being told, like not out loud, but there is a communication from you that says, this needs to be fixed. You need to be fixed. So how is that being known? I mean, maybe if you're being known as like a problem to be fixed, but that's no good. So
it doesn't create connection. So if I just look at like kind of two phenomenon that I think point to God designing us to be givers and receivers of this act of listening. First, we just look neurologically.
Yep.
When you enter into a conversation with somebody where there's real connection being sought, it actually releases that oxytocin, that bonding hormone that's there. And so again, what are people that are feeling lonely? What are the things that they're dealing with? They're longing for a deeper connection and a connection that's really on a sincere level, not a surface level. Active listening has a way of listening in, asking for clarification, asking some more engaging questions here as well. That make the space for a deeper connection with the person. But even on a hormonal level, folks, God has wired us for this deeper connection, and it happens when that compassionate, curious disposition is what we bring to the conversation.
Yeah.
Also, it images Christ more. Folks, we win every time we image Christ more.
Yeah.
Like when we conform our actions and our behaviors to ones that are truly Christ-like, okay? One of the things I realized before I learned this active listening skill is how much I show up to conversations with like these little quiet judgments of the person that I'm talking to.
You do that.
Oh, they should.
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Busted. Fact.
I'm telling you, people know.
But you're right, though. People know when you're listening from a place of compassionate curiosity, right? They talk more. And they also know when you're listening and you're quietly judging them below the surface. There's something that like we pick up on these things, folks.
They also know if you're not paying attention. My 7-year-old daughter, she'll be like, da, 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 like talking on and on. I'll be like, like not paying attention.
Yeah. And
I'll be like, that's cool. And she goes, Mom, why do you always say that's cool? I kind of feel like you're not listening to me. Ouch.
Busted.
She knows. Anyway.
Yeah. But if you want to look for a reference in scripture that I think really is a great reference here. The woman at the well, right? Just look at the way that Christ showed up, compassionate curiosity, and he revealed some kind of hard truths and challenged the woman at the well. It's not just showing up and being passive and accommodating to whatever narrative the person is telling, but he had a way of doing it and such that she was open, right? She was transformed through the conversation. So take a look at the woman in the well for a great scripture reference.
I think for listening skills too, like another scripture reference is Mary, not Mama Mary, even though yes, for sure. But Mary and Martha, the sisters, but Mary sitting at Jesus's feet. When you are approaching somebody and being like, imagine like what mystery of God will this person reveal to me? Like that creates such curiosity,
changes
such
everything.
Wonder. Like how is the glory of God being manifest through this person right now? Like, okay, increasing curiosity in your own mind, and then you start thinking about that other person, and then you stop being so self-focused.
And
anyway,
stop being so judgmental too. That compassionate curiosity that you just talked about, how is God showing up to me in this person right now? It gets you looking for that kind of evidence, okay? And it gets you curious about the mysterious ways that God's grace is working in this person that perhaps you don't have eyes to see yet, but you know they're there. It's there because the person exists.
Right.
And they wouldn't exist if God's grace wasn't sustaining them in existence here.
Yeah.
And so that is like what you see, you draw out of the person here as well, which is why this is so effective.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Let's kind of talk a little bit more about how this is just we've been hitting on it, but like I want to get into some of the great notes that you put together here, Erin, on how this really combats loneliness. And so we're kind of sitting in the why do you need to learn these skills to help somebody else overcome loneliness?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it builds deeper connections through meaningful conversations. So meaningful conversations like we were talking about before, but meaningful conversations that lead somebody to think or to know that they are known, right? Or that they are seen. When we make eye contact, when we attentively listen to somebody, we create safety for others to open up to you. Also, this transforms surface level conversations, which I think everybody's sick of, by the way. I think that, if anything, is probably the number one reason why everybody's feeling lonely, is because there's these surface level conversations, which I hate. I hate surface level conversations. I really do. I dislike them very much. But like when you can make space and allow somebody to open up a little bit, then now you can take a little bit deeper. Because I think a lot of us think, well, we're just at the effect of everybody else in this, in this group that I'm talking to. Like, how come they're not asking the questions? Well, you are the only one who knows this. So insert meaning into the conversation. That is your right. You can do that. You can actually ask those questions that take it deeper. And if other people are like, whoa, taking it too deep, that's okay. There's going to be one person in that group who wants to go deeper. I promise you.
Yeah. I love this other one here about it does reduce anxiety. Because again, if we go back to Gen Z,
social anxiety.
Yes.
Yeah.
If it goes back to Gen Z, even Gen Y with this as well. I was shocked.
Everybody.
Folks.
I think everybody.
Yeah. But I was really shocked when we were teaching confirmation classes and all of a sudden parents were reaching out to us about my kid needs to have their phone during class. Don't take it away because during break because they have social anxiety. I'm just like, what? And so you do it too. Thank you.
You guys just saw it. The judgment
just saw me triggered there. So there's a social anxiety piece that is there. Okay. Can
I speak to that?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Because I literally coached somebody on this, and it was somebody from the Gen Z group, but I experienced this myself too. When I was like doing hair constantly and talking to all new people forever. And then I like resigned pretty much and we got married and you were like, you don't have to work anymore. I'm like, yay, I don't have to work anymore. And I was just like a recluse for 6 months. I
got your dog.
Experienced social anxiety. Like I went out and I was just like, what do I say? What do I say? So I was coaching this young man on like I don't want to have to perform. How do I know what I'm going to have to say? And I said, actually, active listening is like it's the easiest solution to this because everybody wants to talk about themselves. You don't have to say anything. You just go, you ask one question and then you use their name a couple times and you say like, tell me more about that. And you just take it deeper. You don't have to perform. You don't have to do anything like that. And it was like, immediately relief. I saw immediate relief on him. I wish somebody had been able to coach me on this like a while ago. But there is that lifting off where it's like, you don't have to perform. Like that is active listening is a solution to like anti-performance.
All you have to do is be interested in the other person. And like, if you're not interested in the other person, fake it till you make it. Ask them a question. Like maybe they'll reveal something that's really interesting. I find that that has been my experience with it. And so I love that you brought that up. It just alleviates that underlying
pressure.
The thought that's underneath that's causing the anxiety was like, I need to perform. I need to have something good to say. I need to be able to give that pearl of wisdom to this person. I need to solve their problem. You don't.
Yes.
The invitation is to see that person and be curious and compassionate towards them.
This takes pressure off of our coaches too when we're training our coaches. I'm like, you can literally listen someone back to life. Like if all you do is actively listen the entire coaching session, they're going to notice things that they keep saying and they're going to be like, oh, maybe, so there's going to be some realization. Obviously, we train you how to coach beyond that point, but this is such a I would say it's a really rare skill to have. And it is such a needed skill. Obviously, we need this.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Active listening, folks, also creates a sense of belonging in a community.
Yeah.
Because again, when people don't feel like they belong, and they think a thought, I don't belong, they look for all the evidence of why they don't belong. And then they don't engage in conversations. And when you can create that space for the person to kind of share themselves and you can receive them, that experience is one of belonging, right? At least in this conversation, I belong to somebody right now, or I have this place, or I'm honored, or I'm seen by somebody right now.
Yeah.
And that can be such a grounding, like secure
Healing.
base for somebody.
It's very healing.
And they only need like one relationship.
That's it.
One good friend, one good listening relationship that can absolutely, you said that you can heal, you can listen somebody back to life.
Yeah.
It's just
healing.
one person that can create that space for them. It might be you.
Yeah. Can I speak to this actually? Because
Absolutely.
I think, especially that last one, but I feel like all of these three that we just spoke about, I experienced this, and I think I shared this in the loneliness podcast, but I experienced this here in Ave Maria. This is a perfect example of just like feeling like, you know, what is the perfect example? Okay. Anyway, here in Ave Maria, I had been living here for 2 years already, maybe 2.5. And I was like, this is so dumb. I am living alongside of all these people who have like very similar values as me in the same state in life right now. And I still feel so isolated and alone. And I just kept feeling like the Lord was like, bring people together. Just do that. You do that good. Just you do that good. You do that well.
You good at that. You
can't really speak very well, but you know, you do that well. So I brought people together and I go, we're meeting every week. Like, I don't know what we're going to be meeting about, but we're going to be meeting. And it turned into a prayer group. It's so beautiful, but really bringing things much deeper. People saying, I almost left Ave Maria, but like this group has helped me so much, like in this like belonging phase.
Beautiful.
And it's just a space for people to speak and listen and actively listen and learn how to listen from God.
So creates that intimacy. I think also, so folks, where do people in the church today feel like they don't belong? And I think of, call it the lepers in our church community. Some of those, and I was talking to one of our ladies. She's actually in our coach training coming up here. She just wrapped up the mission coach training, and she got the sense that the Lord was calling her to really serve those new converts to the church, because she was somebody in her past who had, dabbled in the occult, dabbled in a lot of new age.
Oh yeah.
And she
That's
came
really
back.
Needed.
Yeah. She came back in conversion. She said, when I got back to the church, I felt like this deep sense of shame, and that I wasn't really accepted, or people wouldn't be able to receive my story. She's like, and I applaud her for this, because she's like, and I know that I had my own mindset stuff that I needed to own and work through. But there's a reality of people that are new converts that are coming into the church that they don't know the fullness of the faith. They just don't know the tradition still, or they have a past where they feel really ashamed. And being able to show up with that person and be compassionately curious, and even when they drop bombs like, yeah, I was a Satanist, or I was, dabbled in the occult, or did all this stuff that was like not good Christian stuff, to not be one of those pearl clutching Karens that just kind of like, oh my goodness, and scandalized by it, but just actually be able to just say, okay, like,
what brought them to the faith?
You're
That's
here.
amazing.
This is wonderful. Tell me more about this story. This is incredible. And it builds that sense of belonging. And she wants to serve those people now. Another group that I think is really struggling, and there's 2 women that have gone through our coach training that have children that are in the LGBT community. Yeah. And there's a real pastoral lack, I would say, right now for coming alongside people, parents specifically, that have adult children or even young children that are struggling with this identity.
Same-sex attraction.
Yep. They know what the church says. They don't need somebody to educate them on what the church says about this. They need someone to love them where they're at and help them to just find hope in the midst of this. And there's even some coaches in our community that are stepping up and they want to fill this void. So
yeah,
amen.
there's a lot of great apostolates out there that serve that, but you're right. Like even like in each parish, have somebody who could speak to that, but also be pastoral and open, hold the space. Okay. So moving on, we digress, but not in a terrible way. I'm very happy with our tangents.
Yeah. How's this help the listener?
Yes. Okay. So this was actually probably one of the biggest breakthroughs when I was doing this research and like finding, okay, obviously active listening helps people feel less alone. The person who's speaking, it helps them feel less alone because it helps them feel seen and known. But how does it help the listener? Because it actually does solve for loneliness for the person who is actively listening. So we all benefit here, right? All right. Number one, psychologically, we've already spoken about this, but it shifts focus away from self-preoccupation. Loneliness comes from a lot of those self-focused thoughts. Nobody notices me. I don't belong. I'm on the outside. And you think that you're speaking the news to us, like the facts. You're like, these are the facts.
I.
Yeah. But when you actively listen, your mental energy shifts to somebody else, and you like now that person who's in front of you gets all of your focus and all of that attention, which is what you were focusing on yourself before. And it retrains your brain to notice connection, to notice other things that are not self-focused, that are keeping you in that cycle of loneliness.
Yeah.
Because that's what a lot of people don't know is self-focus keeps you in the pattern of loneliness.
Yes.
It keeps you in the pattern of depression.
Yeah.
Keeps you in the pattern of anxiety, self-focus, self-focus. And you think you're solving it, and we can interrupt that cycle right there. So that's one way that it actually starts to help you because now you're like, I'm actually kind of connected to this person.
Yeah. And you feel like the dopamine that comes with it. You feel the oxytocin release.
Yes.
There's something in our physiology by God's design that rewards us when we enter into these active listening conversations.
It wasn't necessarily on loneliness, but it was sadness and grief for me when I lost my mom. And a lot of people, maybe some people would assume that I was overworking over here as a coping mechanism. And maybe you're right. I don't know. But I know that it was actually very healing for me to coach other people on grief and sadness while I was going through it myself. Because it was outward focused. It was like, and the Lord would speak to me and like kind of like speak the same truth to me as I was like saying it out loud to somebody else. So there's something that's really beautiful about that.
That is beautiful.
Okay. So yes, it increases oxytocin and dopamine in you as a listener too, because it does connect everybody. And it starts to see that connection as a reward, which I think is another subtle shift that happens.
Yeah. And you don't necessarily have to be sharing your story yourself. It doesn't have to be 50-50. In fact, in an active listening conversation, it's usually more of like an 80-20. They're talking more of the time, 80% of the time, and you're listening more of the time. But even as you're receiving that other person, what I love on the neuroscience here is that those receptive sensors that pick up on people's hand motions and their gestures, closely intertwined in our brains with the areas that pick up on those things are mirror neurons.
Yeah.
Okay. So as we are and those fire and they start to mirror in us what the other person is experiencing. And so again, it just goes back to the wiring, how God has created us to really focus on the person in front of us.
Yes.
And I remember, Erin, the mindset hack that you gave me that, especially as a coach, sometimes we can get in our heads. I know I can start to go into that. I got to find the solution thought, or I don't know, and I start to get the eye focus when I'm there with a client and just being able to go back to that thought, my client will tell me everything I need to know.
Yes.
And even like the being, I don't have to have the answer to this person right now, and that's okay. Yeah. I think it just allows that focus to go right back to the client.
Yeah, right. You're practicing presence.
Yes.
And ultimately, you're also like, by actively listening, you are teaching somebody else to just still to be in presence. Like I would argue that you are teaching somebody to pray, or at least learn the skills of prayer by like letting all of the stuff out. One of my favorite things to say is, okay, now that you just told me that, guess what? I'm here for you. I'm here to support you. And you can do that in prayer. Like that's actually the Lord's like, finally, there you are.
Yeah.
Yay. Now we see each other.
Well, I'm thinking here too, as this person is kind of sharing their heart with you and you are looking back with them compassionately, and your mirror neurons are firing.
Yeah.
Their mirror neurons are also firing.
Yes.
Right. And so they're picking up on the compassion, and that has a way of changing them. And I have found that where somebody could be an absolute motor mouth in the beginning, right? With the active listening, suddenly they start to mirror the very curiosity that you are bringing into the conversation. And so it's a way of, it kind of creates a space for them where there's like, what about you? I've been doing all the talking. Like, tell me about you.
Sure.
And then of course, like,
yes, there's
enter into that conversation. Yeah.
There is kind of a natural reciprocity. Not with everybody, but like there is a natural reciprocity for most.
I think with maturity,
self-aware people, I guess you could say.
Yep. But they gain the self-aware by watching, and they learn how to model it from you. That's how we grow in our emotional intelligence through modeling.
Which I would also say that there's a deeper sense of meaning in the person who's listening now. Like there's that growth of meaning as well. So it's like, not only are you connecting to this person and receiving all that dopamine and oxytocin, and you're having all those mirror neurons, but you're also going, this is exactly where I need to be right now. You know, this is like just being present with somebody, like that actually increases your own sense of meaning and purpose being there.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, just like another thing that it's very, the benefit to the listener here is that spiritual healing component of it here. Again, when we are actively listening, we are modeling Christ very much so in his active listening, his compassionate curiosity, his truth with love, sharing truth with love. We're modeling that. And whenever we can model Christ, we are conforming ourselves to the reality of who we are, created in God's image and likeness. There's a healing that takes place in that. And it's something that's just, it's no longer we who live, but Christ who lives within us. Right. I remember hearing once that, God loves some people more than others. And I'm being like, ooh, that sounds kind of harsh. And the philosophy behind this was, the only person worthy of God's love is God himself, right? And so when he can see his image more clearly, and he sees himself mirrored more clearly in his creation, he actually can enter a more loving relationship with that creature all the more. And so there's a greater capacity to be loved, right, from the creature here that is bearing God's image all the more, and then able to actually receive more of that love. And you think of the supreme example of this is our Blessed Mother. And it's okay. It's okay in my book for God to love the Blessed Mother more than he loves me.
Sure.
Because she certainly mirrors his who he is.
Yeah.
More perfectly.
She's the moon
than I, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Also, I think, don't you want that? This is just, I'm going off notes here, but don't you want that inner stillness and contentment, like not having to interrupt people and not having to be like, let me tell you about me, or
defend yourself,
right? But like, what beautiful security. And like, we can only get there through really modeling Christ and like coming to him and receiving him receiving us, right? Like actually receiving that. But I don't know. I just think that's like kind of an ideal that I want to like aim for, and just being like having a stillness about myself where I don't have to like perform, or I don't have to like present, or I don't have to look smart, or I don't have to like have it all together. Like I'm here, I'm listening to you. And like, this is about you. This conversation is about you today.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And it's about opening to an encounter. Last year I spoke at the National Catholic Singles Conference, and one of the talks that I gave was about not seeking so much, a solution to your romantic, relationship needs, right? But just being open to an encounter. So kind of letting down the manuals, letting down those expectations of where you think your relationships need to be.
Yeah, sure.
Just kind of letting go of those things. You can go pick them up later if you want, right? But just letting go of those things and being open to an encounter with the person. And the beautiful thing about that is whenever you truly encounter the person, you find something that you didn't even know that you were longing for, because that person carries with them the image and likeness of God. No matter who they are, right? No matter how immature or undeveloped or lacking in self-awareness they might be.
Go on a scavenger hunt. Find it.
It's there. It's there.
Ask the Lord to
Christ
show
is seeking
you.
them, like be the hound of heaven, like manifest on earth, seeking Christ in each person. And people will enjoy that experience.
Yeah. So to wrap this all up, why does active listening, why is it an antidote to loneliness? Well, loneliness thrives in conversations that are shallow.
Yeah.
Okay. Loneliness also thrives when people don't feel understood or seen or known, and social fears keep them withdrawn, right? So that's when loneliness thrives. They're focused on themselves. They're going and withdrawing, and they're operating out of fear. And active listening and good communication actually flip this script by making relationships more meaningful, right? Like, hey, what's something that you've always wanted to do, but like, and if you had all the resources in the world and you could do anything, what would you do? Like, nobody asks that question to adults anymore. We do, but most people don't ask that. So it's these more meaningful conversations, these more self-excavating conversations. Like, you don't really know what's going to come out.
Yeah. And it's a lot.
Okay.
It's on that. It's a lot easier to ask those questions when you've already considered those questions for yourself.
Right.
Okay. And
you answered them yourself.
And we go deep into these questions with our Become series in the Academy, but also our other series called Ignite. So Become and Ignite are the two courses that are really the journey path in the Academy. And it creates a space for you really to explore these deep, meaningful questions. And when you start doing it, it's just a natural thing. You get curious about other people, and it just feels proper to be entering into these deeper conversations with them and asking the good questions. Yeah.
I'm thinking of that statement. What is it? It's like boring people are boring, or bored people are boring. And then also like interested people are interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So going back to active listening, good communication flips the script. We already said by making relationships more meaningful, more reciprocal, because like we were saying, like that law of reciprocity, when you start doing this, other people start asking you more, but we're not really doing it for that sake, but still, okay, it's wonderful.
By God's design,
right?
Mirror neurons.
And also more resilient. I noticed even like in the prayer group that we established, like there are people who are like, we do not miss prayer group. Like you're not allowed to miss prayer group. Because it's like the one place where you can come with other people and like be seen and known on a much deeper level. And some people are not receiving that. I'm not saying I don't know this for a fact, but I would hope everybody's receiving that from their family and from their closest friends, but maybe not. I don't know. So like, let's take it deeper. Why couldn't you do it every day if you could? So, I want to end this podcast with a really brief little technique that you can go and use when you leave to go out and combat that loneliness.
Super simple.
Yes.
Super simple. And it needs to be intentionally applied.
Yes.
Like it needs to be practiced. Yep. Practice makes it a habit. And when you get in the habit of active listening, folks, your conversations will be transformed for the better.
Your relationships will be too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So this is called the spotlight effect. We teach this to our coaches. This is one of the many. But this is more of an internal disposition, because we have to go first, right? We can't expect other people to give us all the answers and whatever, like go out there and like it be perfect. So we have to kind of apply this intentionally to ourselves first. It's more of an internal visual exercise. So when you are standing in front of somebody and you're like, I'm going to use the spotlight effect with this person, this is what you do. As they are speaking, the spotlight, as if you were like the lighting person, like for a stage or whatever, the spotlight is always on them. If your focus is on them, the spotlight is on them. If your focus goes off onto yourself, am I doing this right? That is one way that it does go onto yourself. Now the spotlight is on you. And you can gently just put it back on the person by being like, oh, remember, we're just focusing on what they're saying. And if you need them to repeat, you could be like, I'm so sorry. Could you just repeat what you just said? You know, there's ways of redirecting it. It doesn't mean that you failed forever or whatever. Like our brains have this habit of being like, wanting to inject ourselves into a conversation. Totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you're actively listening, you can practice this. So this is the spotlight effect.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to add to that?
Well, just the effects of applying this myself, just this one skill, is I start to pick up on things in the conversation that otherwise I would have just missed. Okay. Because that spotlight, you're focusing, there's a curiosity, and suddenly you're really hearing the words, and as you're processing them, sometimes that curiosity kicks off a little bit of a question. And it's one of those questions, some of those questions might be, I wonder why they keep using that word. You know, maybe there's a word they consistently use. Or I wonder what they mean when they say, and whatever.
You can ask them those questions. You'd be like, hey, what do you mean by when you say this?
Yeah, it's like, okay, like you keep saying this one thing. Like I've got an idea in my head of what it looks like, but like I want to know what it means to you. What do you mean?
Yes.
And that is all you're doing is you're helping the person to kind of
communicate.
But also what that happens, they may have never asked themselves that question before.
Sure.
Okay.
Yes.
And so you're creating a space for them to kind of self-reflect, to see themselves, right? Which is when you feel seen, when you start to look at yourself, that combats the loneliness, right? And it just creates that space for them to get a little bit curious about themselves. And they, you know what? I never really thought about that. Maybe that word's not really appropriate in this situation.
Right. Okay? Like, actually, what I meant is this. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's just a really fruitful start there. Just go, where's my attention being applied right here? Okay. My goal is to make it, 80%. The spotlight is on this person.
Spotlight on them. Yeah.
Right. 80%. And that spotlight really, what it does, it's interpretation of where your focus is. Yeah. So it's going, okay, 80%, I'm going to aim for this. This will be a fun little game.
Yeah. You'll know you're doing it right when you start asking better questions throughout the conversation. Okay. Kind of call to action here, folks. So if this has been something that's helpful for you, if you're like, doggone it, I want to learn these skills of, doggone it, I want to learn these skills of active listening. This is one of the first lessons that we teach in our mission coach training. Mission coach training right now, we've got there's a cohort that's starting every single quarter. Right. Yeah. And so we developed this coach training. It's separate from our certification, even though our certification actually includes mission coach training. But it's really designed for those people that maybe they're working in ministry, they're on the front lines, they're accompanying people, but they don't necessarily want to be a full-time coach or do coaching for a living as a professional. That's fine, but they still want the coaching skills. The mission coach training is really our response to that need and that desire.
Yep.
And so active listening is just one of the coaching essential skills that we teach in that. And it was one of the favorite classes that people had. They continue to go back to it. Not only do we teach it, but we give you lots of time over the entire 16 weeks of the course to practice it, right, with other people. And so really good listeners who just graduated. We actually just graduated our first cohort with that last night. Yep. Super exciting. But if you're like, I don't necessarily want to go through the training myself, but I'd love to, find out a little bit more about what you're doing at Ave Maria University. You're going to be teaching some of these skills to their student leaders over there. How can I bring you onto my campus?
Just
shoot us an email, speaking@metanoiacatholic.com, speaking@metanoiacatholic.com. That's it. Shoot us an email and say, hey, I'm curious about how we might be able to bring you to our parish or church to be able to pour into some of our leaders. That's
Amen.
It. Cool.
All right, guys.
All right, team.
Thanks so much. We'll see you next week. God bless.
I love this one.
Me too.
Hey, thanks for sticking with us in the Catholic Coaching Podcast. If you like what you heard,
please like and subscribe, and we'll see you again.